Would you join me in prayer? Holy Father, we come to you now and ask your guidance as we as the Caddo Parish School Board make decisions concerning the budget and concerning the welfare of our children. Father, we pray you'll give us wisdom to make correct decisions that will help our kids and continue to give them a quality education. We thank you for every blessing, and especially the gift of your Son. It's through his name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you would join me in turning your telephones and your electronic devices to silent. And board members, it's roll call. Roll call. Vote now. I got them all. Okay. Ms. Priest has asked for a point of personal privilege for the reading of the document.
Thank you, President Ramsey. To the board, superintendent, and members of the audience, we do have a resolution today to be read into our minutes, and this resolution is for Mrs. Mildred B. Pugh, and it reads, whereas Mrs. Mildred B. Pugh retired from the Caddo Parish school system following 25 years of service as a teacher and assistant principal at Carver Elementary, Walnut Hill, and Woodlawn High School, and whereas Mrs. Mildred B. Pugh was elected to represent District 5 on the Caddo Parish School Board from September 15, 1982 through December 31st, 1990, and from August 3rd, 1994 through December 31st, 2001. And whereas Mrs. Mildred B. Pugh was elected to serve as president of the Caddo Parish School Board in 1989 and 1996, and whereas Mrs. Mildred B. Pugh was a strong advocate for public education and a quality education for all students in Caddo Parish. Now therefore be it resolved that the Caddo Parish School Board, the superintendent, and staff extend heartfelt condolences to the family and friends at the passing of Mrs. Mildred B. Pugh, and be it further resolved that this resolution be presented to the family as an expression of our sympathy and recorded into the minutes of the Caddo Parish School Board. This is signed by Larry Ramsey, President, Dr. Gerald Dawkins, Superintendent, and all board members.
Okay, and audience and board, if you would, let's pause again for another minute of silent prayer in honor and memory of Miss Mildred Pugh. Please bow. Amen. That brings us to the visitor section for tonight's agenda item. Caddo Parish School Board welcomes your input and comments during visitor section. When your name is called, step to the mic and make your remarks to the entire board. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. If several visitors are registered to speak on the same issue, limit their, should have said 5 minutes. If the several visitors are registered to speak on the same issue, the board requests that groups or individuals consolidate their comments or limit individual comments to 3 minutes. A time clock on the monitor screen will help you be aware of your time. When the time runs out, your time is up. It is the board's policy not to respond individually to members of the audience. When appropriate, the board may refer concerns to the staff to be addressed. As this is a public meeting, we ask you to refrain from referring to personnel by name or incident. Thank you. Our first speaker tonight is Mr. Rob Broussard. You have 3 minutes. Please step to the mic, state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Rob Broussard. I live at 451 Sandifer, and I am a citizen, taxpayer, former employee of the Cattle Prairie School System. First of all, I'd like to ask all of you to take a moment and ponder one statement I'm going to make before I get into a general discussion on the budget, and that is, a year ago, I asked and received from the superintendent a breakdown per pupil expenditure for every kid in this parish, and asked how much money did each school get per student. As you know, all of you know, you've seen the figures, there is a huge disparity between what some schools get and what other schools get. And so it raised the question of what is equality. And I've actually had people say that equality is not the question anymore, but equity. And so when people pose that question to me, I ask, if we continue down the path that we are going with the number of, quote, failing schools that our parish has, when does equality and equity enter into the arena on the same page? If the state takes over these failing schools, will they get the figures that the superintendent released to me? Or will they get figures that are somehow manipulated or changed so that we would then go to equality versus equity? And I think when I say that, we talk about some schools getting $13,000 a kid and other schools getting $5,000 a kid. So if the state takes over some of those schools that are getting $13,000 a kid, is the state going to take $13,000 a kid? Or are they going to take a figure that is based on equality? Okay. Second, I really hope y'all come to grips that one of the proposals on this floor is to kill the discoveries classes. All of those that are in education know good and well that you show your greatest growth in your schools in developing and improving school performance scores, in dealing with kids that actually that are in that bracket that are discovery kids. This is really a good program. I hope you really think about it before you kill that program. I have 49 seconds left, and I'll say one other thing. This board has consistently proven that it has an inability to solve some very basic problems, one of them being the budget. At Byrd High School, where my kid goes, if you kill and change the staffing formula, our baseball coaches right now got 75 kids by himself every day. If you change that block schedule, you're going to take a guy that leaves school as part of his planning period that goes and takes care of the facilities every day, and you're going to make him do that after work, which he doesn't have time because he's got 75 kids. If the formula continues as it's proposed, we don't have the staffing formula that's going to give him those extra coaches, 2 of which resigned this term. So my time has expired, but if y'all would like to discuss that further with me, I'll be glad to show you some more figures. And but please consider the first one the most. Thank you.
Karen Othout, did I pronounce that correctly? Karen. Mr. Murray, are you in the audience? Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Karen Othal. I live at 9324 Reaver Ridge in Shreveport, 71115. I've been a teacher in Caddo Parish for 18 years, and I am proud to teach the 4th and 5th grade Discoveries class at University Elementary. I went to university as a child, and I live in District 9, therefore University is my neighborhood school. I have 3 children. My oldest attended university, kindergarten through 5th grade, and my younger 2 children go to university and will be in 2nd and 4th grade next year. So I'm here today, not only as a teacher, but also as a parent. I believe as I stand here and speak in front of you, not only am I speaking for me, but for many, many others as well. And as you can see, several are here with us today. I'm very concerned about the future of Caddo schools. It is my understanding that today you will be discussing and voting on eliminating 31 Discoveries classes across the parish. As a professional, I am quite confused at the rationale behind this particular cutback. I understand that our school system is broke, but the budget cuts should not directly affect the students. There are several jobs at central office that could be eliminated, as well as just stuff that isn't needed in our schools. For example, several years ago, schools across the parish were given new soap dispensers. A year or 2 later, those new soap dispensers were removed to put in the exact same soap dispenser with the Caddo apple and the phrase, creating world-class schools for world-class students. Did we really need to be able to read that phrase to remind us of what our job is? There was absolutely no reason to spend that money on something that wasn't broken. Then again, just 3 weeks ago, all paper towel dispensers were replaced with fancy new ones. Nothing was wrong with the paper towel dispensers that we had. Why do we continue to spend money on things that are not necessary? Cutting the Discoveries program is not going to do anything but hurt our children. Discoveries is an enriched program to help meet the needs of above-average children that excel academically but don't quite qualify for the Gateway program. Discoveries works to challenge students to take them a step further than what they are learning in the regular classroom. As teachers in any grade, our goal is to bring low-achieving students up academically. However, if a child is bright and smart and doesn't need any extra help to make them successful, does that mean that we shouldn't challenge them and give them the opportunity to go above and beyond what they already know and enrich them further? We should do everything in our power to continue to push our bright students to learn even more. If you take away the Discoveries program, you will continue to hurt our neighborhood schools. We already are losing more and more students every year to the magnet programs and to private schools, and now the new Magnolia Charter School. Neighborhood schools are going to have nothing left to offer students to keep them in their neighborhood schools. We just won't be able to compete. Losing the Discoveries program will just be another reason for parents to take their children to other schools that offer more. No wonder there's talk of creating an independent school district. So today, please think long and hard before you vote on ending the Discoveries program. Is it really in the best interest of the children? All children,
Time's up.
regardless of whether they are weak or strong students, have the right to have their academic needs met. Losing the Discoveries program would be devastating and affect hundreds of children.
We need to stick with the 3-minute time limit. There are a lot of other folks that would like to have their say, so I'm going to do the best I can to make sure that happens. And please hold your applause. This is a board meeting, and let's show the proper behavior. I would appreciate it. Thank you. Stephanie Springer. Please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Stephanie Springer. I live at 242 Pennsylvania, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71005. I've been in the teaching profession for 10 years, and I honestly love it. I'm a product of the Caddo Parish school system. I went to Walnut Hill and Byrd. After I graduated from Louisiana Tech, I didn't want to teach anywhere else because I believe in our parish. I believe in our students, and I believe in our teachers. However, the changes that Caddo Parish keep making and or suggesting to make worries me about my future as a teacher in this parish. Let me be very honest, because honesty is what we need here. I'm a good teacher. I am dedicated. I'm hardworking. I'm a national board certified teacher in English education. The only reason I'm able to be the best teacher I can be is because I put time into what I do. I put effort into it. I put energy into it. Now I'm being told by the parish, by my school board, that in order to save the budget, the best plan would be to add another class to my schedule and take away one of my planning periods. I'm sorry, it's unacceptable. It may be an easy plan, but it is by no means the best plan for any of us. If you vote in support of this, you're telling me and every other high school teacher in this parish that you do not value our time, our energy, and our effort that we put into teaching the kids in our parish on a daily basis. If you even consider this as a reasonable, rational, viable solution, then it leads me to believe one of two things. You have either never been in the classroom setting or you are far too removed from it. We as teachers must have time daily to prepare and to grade the rigorous coursework that our students so desperately need. Please think this through. My planning period is immensely valuable to me and my students. On a typical day, my planning period allows me to construct lessons, build tests and activities, prepare lecture notes and presentations, make copies, grade papers and essays, meet with the English department, tutor students, meet with administration. I could literally keep this list going on forever. I currently teach 180 students, and I struggle to keep up with the grading and administrative paperwork as it is. And you're wanting to add another class of 30 plus students. They say our classes are going to be smaller. That's a lie. I already spend hours at home on my own time grading papers and trying to catch up. By voting to pass this budget, you're saying that my personal time has absolutely no value. Not to mention that we're changing the Common Core curriculum. How are we supposed to create more rigorous coursework and curriculum without the time to do so? Don't get me started on how we don't get paid for the actual time we put into our jobs. Please look at other options on cutting areas of the budget. Look at the attorney fees. Is it really necessary to have a dozen lawyers that we're paying retainer fees and flat rates that we actually pay over $1 million a year for? Also look at your travel budget. We send over 6 or 8 of you to the state board meetings and the state board meetings and the federal meetings. And we can only send 2 or 3 of our teachers to meetings at a time. So if we can send 2 or 3 teachers to a meeting, and we are expected to deliver that message back to our teachers, why don't you send 2 or 3 of your teachers and 2 or 3 of the board members, and y'all come back and deliver that message to everybody at a time as well. Sorry.
Thank you. Heather Hooper, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Heather Hooper. I teach at Captain Shreve High School. I reside at 133 Archer Avenue, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71105. I'll speak on planning periods and their impact on students as individuals. Have you noticed a change in Laderick's attitude recently? I've struggled to get him engaged in discussions, and that's not like him. He is a talkative kid. Sarah has seemed preoccupied for the past week. How's she been in history? How has Michael been in geometry? He's been very angry and withdrawn in English. Discussions such as these occur during every planning period at Captain Shreve High School. These are important, helpful talks wherein teachers hope to help an individual child. Frequently, 504 coordinators and special education teachers work at multiple schools, which restricts time for proactive discussions to only planning periods. During these solution searches, teachers become coaches and discover what works for Laderick, what Sarah needs to succeed, and what path is needed to help guide an angry, isolated teenager away from violence. Planning periods are not the time where we create syllabi or lesson plans. We did that over the summer in our off time. It is during planning periods that lessons become more detailed, creative, and differentiated. We didn't know the students when we wrote the lesson, but now we do. Now we can teach. But in order to teach, we must plan. The block schedule helps with graduation rates, but it does reduce overall instructional minutes, which means a teacher must be efficient during class. Every second must be focused, driven, and planned. Writing and reading extend beyond English classes in Common Core, but an essay written by a student deserves to be read by the teacher. That reading often occurs during the planning period. That grade is more than a number. It is an opportunity of communication for that child to be heard and understood. Responding to that essay with care and respect builds trust, and that relationship of trust can engage the adolescent and give them a reason to want to come back to school on Thursday. They are heard. They matter. Last week during a school board meeting, I heard of a software program which grades essays. I never used the program. Maybe it accurately grades for technique and grammar. However, no computer program can grade for creativity, humor, individuality, or satire. And no computer program can hear that an adolescent's writing just shifted to something dark and isolated, filled with despair. The rest of the country is trying to solve the problem of school violence. Here in Caddo, we are considering removing one of the most powerful tools on the first line of defense, the mode of communication between an individual student and a teacher. Thank you.
Thank you. Maureen Barclay. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Maureen Barclay. I teach English at Captain Shreve. I reside at 620 Huron Street in Shreveport, 71106. As a member of the original scheduling committee at Captain Shreve, I can testify that we researched long-term studies on a variety of schedules. We selected the current schedule because we knew it was the best for our students. It still is the best for our students, but only if properly implemented with a daily planning time for teachers. As you consider making changes to the high school schedule, keep in mind the challenges our teachers face. Nearly all teachers must prepare for multiple courses. Between my 6 classes, I teach 3 different English courses and an elective. This diverse course load is not unique to Captain Shreve. Within each class, high school teachers must plan for a range of instructional needs. We have students with 504 and IEP accommodations, mandated behavioral plans and interventions, in addition to meeting the diverse personal needs and backgrounds each of our students presents. They deserve individual instruction. Daily planning periods ensure teachers have time to differentiate lessons. With the current AB block, high school teachers serve up to 99 students per day, a total of 198. The modified block schedule will drastically increase teachers' student load and teaching time, and at the same time cut instructional planning time in half. Teachers would see 99 students one day, 132 students the next day, for a total of 231 students. With 90 minutes to plan every other day, this translates to 23.37 seconds of planning time per student. With the AB block, teachers must keep the pulse of their class through daily assessments, and writing is crucial across the curriculum. My students write daily. Imagine trying to evaluate student work and provide feedback to those 231 students. Imagine 231 essays, 231 lab reports, 231 speeches, 231 journals, with 23.37 seconds each. A modified block schedule will encourage homogenized, mediocre, reductive instruction and assessment. Last week, the State Senate Education Committee rejected proposed changes to the MFP. We may expect to see funds calculated at the 2011-2012 rates. I ask you to pursue budget cuts in other areas and re-examine the MFP funds we will receive. Please do not sacrifice individual instruction by implementing the modified block schedule and cutting a daily planning period for high school teachers. Please do not discount the time we invest in planning engaging, creative, differentiated experience for each of our students. Please support the current AB block schedule. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jeff Roberts, please step to the mic and state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Jeff Roberts, Principal, Southwood High School, 6931 Buncombe Road, 7129. I'm here to speak on behalf of the modified AB block. 3 years ago, I was hired to take over a school that was near failing. a school that was $20,000 in the red. And my first task assigned by you as a board was to get that school in the black, because it was not allowable to operate in the red. If it's not allowable to operate a school in the red, it shouldn't be allowable to operate a district in the red. That's your job as a board, to balance the budget. You came to us as principals, high school principals, and you asked for our assistance. You asked for possible solutions to a problem. There, out of that discussion of principles, we were asked what was acceptable. What could we give up and still operate within the AB, which we all, I believe, agree is the best system for our students and for their success academically. The one proposal that came of that was the modified block, picking up a 7th section, eliminating a planning period. After last week's board meeting, we re-examined the master schedule. We have now tweaked our schedule so that our teachers at Southwood are able to enter into the modified AB block, maintain 90-minute class or planning periods on one particular day, and a 45-minute planning period on the off day. Not a 15-minute adjustment to a lunch schedule. A 45-minute period by team teaching an elective, so that teachers are teaching 45 minutes of each block in a common content area that they are both interested in and well knowledgeable in. That's our plan, not to take a planning period every day. Our meeting today with board members and with our district level committee folks asked for us to look at that on a school by school basis. It won't look the same on every campus, but can it be done on every campus? Yes, it can. I hear a lot of people that say, we can't do this, we can't do that. I have a staff of teachers who will do whatever it takes for our students. Doesn't matter to them. They've given up planning periods, A day and B day. They've done remediation throughout the year. They came to me and offered their lunch shifts. If you'll bring me sack lunches, I'll spend time with my failing students for half of a year to have those students reach the level that they need. I thank my staff for who they are and for what they do. There is none better than the staff of Southwood High School. They are truly committed to student success, and they will do whatever it takes to get the job done. Thank y'all.
Bert, all good? Please step to the mic and state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bert Allgood. I live at 735 Monrovia in Shreveport, Louisiana, 71106. Before I started teaching, I was in the Navy for 22 years. One of my assignments was a manpower analyst, and part of my job was maintaining what's called FIT-UP. This is the 5-year defense plan. Okay? So I was in charge of all the manpower for the Navy for the current year plus the next 4 years. I want to know, what's the plan here for the next 5 years? Do we have one? Do we have one for the current year? No, we don't. Why don't we? Why can't we do that? Shouldn't that be what we're doing here? We need some long-range plan. What could we cut instead of going through this modified block schedule? Here's some stuff. After-hours bus runs for athletes and cheerleaders. I heard we do that. I don't understand that. That's not quite understandable to me. Central office staff needs to be cut. The central office cafeteria. How about leasing that space out to Subway or something, making some money there? We could do that. Summer school. I think the budget goes from $300,000 to $600,000 this next year. We're doubling the summer school budget. If we're going to keep the block, I don't know why we need that. We're doing it now so that the kids have enough chances to go through and pass all the courses, or else get them during the next year. Why do the summer school too? It doesn't make sense. HR department has 21 clerical positions. We could run a Navy base with 21 clerical positions. It seems excessive to me. Also, something else I'd like to mention, during a recent meeting, someone stated that they were concerned about all the teachers coming up here and saying what they could not do under this modified block schedule. Well, times have changed in the last 20 years, and all the teachers aren't coaches, okay? It's a little bit more difficult for us to plan what we're going to do, okay? Using a whistle and a stopwatch is not that difficult. It doesn't take a lot of planning there. So I'd like to modify that too. We can take a look at that. Last thing I'd like to tell you is to make smart cuts. Don't make the easy cuts. Plan it, think about it, make the smart cuts. Thank you.
Graham Claycomb. Did I pronounce that correctly? Okay. Step to the mic, name, address, and
I'm Emily
Thank you.
Claycomb. We live at 397 Ockley Drive, Shreveport, Louisiana. This is my son Graham. He's in 4th grade in a Caddo Parish Public School.
When I heard that some people were thinking about taking away the opportunity of discoveries and removing the library teachers, I did not agree with this because that was an opportunity for our school and also my friends to learn more about what happened and how things go in other places. And actually, one of my friends is here right now, and she's in Discoveries, and it's devastating to know that people are planning to take away that opportunity from her, and I just don't agree with that. And I just don't really, and I'm sure half of the people here think that too. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I think that they should have thought this. I think that these people should have thought this through. I mean, think about the kids here that like Discoveries, that like the library. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Like this is actually this makes no sense to me. I can't believe this. Whoever these people are, they think this through and get this message and know that there are people out there that care about this. Thank you.
good job, young man.
Sorry, we had the applause on that one.
I forgive for that, I promise you. Georgia Head. State your name and address for the record. Thank you.
I'm going to have a real tough time following that, I will say. I'm Georgia Head, 241 Suzanne Drive, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71115. I teach at Berg High School, also am the parent of 2 boys. One is now getting ready to enter pharmacy school, and one is a 5th grader. So both of my boys have been through Discoveries. I think that both of the options that I have looked at that are being proposed are unacceptable. When I left here, I've been at the last 2 school board meetings. This is not exactly how I had planned to spend my summer vacation, is being up here again, but I care enough about my job, I care enough about the kids, I care enough about my kids and the students I teach to be here, because this is something that I am very passionate about. But I do feel that both of these options that have been proposed, that y'all have advertised, are both of them are cutting. You're trying to balance the budget on the backs of the teachers or the students. Both of these things have nothing to do with anything except teachers and students. Okay, because both of them include increasing class size for 4th and 5th graders. And I know I stood here just a little more than a week ago and told you what all we do, along with all my coworkers, on our planning periods. I teach high school. When I first started in this parish almost 15 years ago, I only had barely 100 kids. Every time the schedules were altered, we went from a 6-period day, we talked about going to 7-period day, that never materialized. We went to block, and I was told over and over I would never have any more students. Well, I went from 100 kids, I have 190 kids now, and I can guarantee if that modified block happens, even if I'm allowed half of my planning period on the every other day, I'm still going to have 230 kids. And that is too many for a high school teacher for what we have to do with those kids. So, and it just, like all my coworkers have told you, it makes them suffer. I also don't want to see the Discoveries programs cut or even talked about being cut because, like I said, all those enrichments, my children are go to the neighborhood schools and they have both been students in those, and I feel very strongly about that. Another thing about the cutting of the planning periods, I can guarantee you if that option does pass, you're going to have a hard time finding substitute teachers because when you think about it, what days do you think a high school teacher is going to take off when they need to take their child to the doctor or when they need to go to the doctor or make a doctor's appointment? Certainly not going to be the day with the planning period. And what substitute wants to sit in a room all day long with only a 30-minute break with high school kids? So I can guarantee you that'll be something that y'all may or may not have even thought about. I have done statistics on my students, and I have about 20% of my students are special ed with a lot of those have behavior disorders, and this was something I didn't get to hit on last week, but a lot of my planning time is spent filling out all the special ed paperwork. I mean, I could probably spend an entire planning period filling out special ed paperwork. So this, to me, is just not either of these options. I thought we were going to go back when y'all voted Thursday and come up with some things that didn't affect the students of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Mallory, and correct me if that's the wrong way to pronounce that name, but please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Timothy Mallory. I live at 710 East Washington Street, Shreveport, 71104. My wife's a teacher in this district. I teach across the river. And redoing the SAP formula is something that just can't happen. Teachers need to teach. They need prep time. They need more time with their kids and less kids to do it with. Unfortunately, morale is already low enough as it is, as you know, with Compass, Common Core, everything else we have. We just can't do it all. And it sickens me to see that high school teachers have to teach 230 kids. No, can't happen. And you're going to see a huge decline in results in state testing, increased behavior problems. It just can't happen. No chance. You're going to see teachers leaving like in big drones coming up. I taught 32 kids last year as a 5th grade teacher. It was the worst year ever. My test scores were terrible. I had more referrals in 5 years than I ever had. More kids are going to get shuffled through the system because they're going to fall through the cracks. How can a teacher that teaches 30, 35 kids be expected to do their job effectively? It's just not going to happen. So instead of cutting teachers, why don't you cut those useless jobs and those useless programs and those paper towel dispensers and those soap dispensers? Come on. If you ever expect to improve as a district, what good does cutting the teachers that do their best every day and giving them less to do? What good is increasing class sizes? And when scores go down and you become the lowest rated district in the state, you have nobody to blame but yourselves, and leadership that just wastes money, wastes our time, wastes the teachers' time, wastes the kids' time. We have fabulous teachers in this district. I don't have the privilege of working in Caddo. I wish I did, but unfortunately I don't. And I feel horrible for these teachers that have to put up with all this ridiculousness on a weekly, daily, monthly, yearly basis. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Charlita Anderson. Did I mess up the name that badly? She's not here. Here she, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm Charlita Brosey Anderson, and I reside at 4304 Lakeshore Drive, Shreveport, Louisiana.
I'm gonna have to ask you to restate that in the microphone. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Charlita Brosey, Charlita Anderson Brosey, and I reside at 4304 Lakeshore Drive, Shreveport, Louisiana. Zip is 71109, apartment 207. Paraprofessional high schools and low performing schools, we're in dire need for you not to make cutbacks. Please do not. Planning time and service time to the students is very valuable. I spend, as a paraprofessional, a lot of valuable time to our needed students, SPED as well as 504 and others. I try to see that our students succeed in reading, handwriting, math, and any other accommodations that they need with what we have to work with. I'm able to give that time, but we do need the cooperation of the school board to help us. I'm willing to work with these students to succeed and get the accommodations they need. And discoveries is very needed in our communities, and we do need extra, anything that books, everything to work with these students. As a parent, I would do, everything I need, but please, I'm asking, do not make the cutbacks at these lower performing schools because it is needed for these students. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Hart. Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Jeff Hart. Live at 4343 Hampton Lane, Shreveport, 71107. First off, I'd like to say, Mr. Ramsey, it's very courageous of you to come up with the proposals that you have, but frankly, I think they stink. I'm a parent of a student, about to be 2 students in Caddo Parish. Is it all right if I walk around, or do I have to do everything here?
I need you to stay there so we can pick up every word you say.
That's fine. Technically, I can walk around and still be heard. Could you pause it for just a second? Okay, thank you. This is my daughter. Her name's Zoe Hart. 2 years ago, she tested to get into the Gateway program. She missed by 1 point, so she was able to go into the Discoveries program, and she loved every minute of it. This year, she tested to get into the Gateway program again, and she blew the test out of the water. Now, I'm not saying that the Discoveries program had anything to do with it, but I'm saying the Discoveries program probably had a lot to do with it. I noticed when I walked in, y'all had pictures up on your screens celebrating the students, the ones who were Student of the Year. With these proposals, this doesn't seem like very much of a celebration for the Students of the Year. How many of these students that you had up there of Student of the Year, how many of them were in Discoveries when they first started? How many of them are in Discoveries when they first started? I'm just saying, look at your choices. Look at other choices. There's got to be something else better. Sorry. This one shouldn't be, there we go. That'd be fine. Here's another picture. My oldest son, Robert, he's going to be starting kindergarten this year. I would like it if he had that chance to be in the Discoveries program. If you cut all the teachers out of it, then that chance is gone. Now, I'd just like to say to everyone in the crowd who is teachers, thank you for all that you volunteer for the students. We appreciate everything that you do for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie Lansdale. Please state your name, address for the record. You have 5 minutes.
Jackie Lansdale, president of the Red River United, 1726 Line Avenue, Shreveport, Louisiana, to the relentless Caddo Parish School Board. My good friend Mildred Pugh used to tell me, Jackie, don't just talk to one board member. You're not doing your job unless you speak to every board member, regardless of how you feel. So this is addressed to all of you today. So here we are again. We heard that the superintendent and some of the board members got together and said that something had to be done. We don't disagree with that, but what we really hoped would have happened before you brought it back was you would have done your due diligence and not more shoddy surface work. Tonight's proposal is like going to the doctor and being told that you need to lose weight, and the doctor looks at you and says, well, we can either cut off your left leg or we can cut off your right leg. Now, clearly lopping off a limb would produce a weight loss, but really, besides being a great scare tactic, is it really the best option? To us, impacting 10,000 high school students and their teachers through a change in schedule and raising the teacher-pupil ratio impacting the population of many thousand more students in elementary is kind of like lopping off a limb. And then juxtaposing it against that with a threat to do away with Discovery and Gifted and librarians is nothing more than a good scare tactic, and it's disgusting. So, why are we here? What does your budget say about what your priorities are? Your budget, which by the way, has another example of your failure of due diligence. You have a line item for an alternative ed, I assume ombudsman, for over $4 million. I bring this up to you because the number of students that serves, and which came from a report that was shown to you, serves 500 students. 4 million plus for 500 students. So really, what is this about? You know the MFP will revert back to 2011-12 with a plus $3 million plus that's going to come back to you, and the voucher money, which conservative estimate, 88 vouchers, somewhere around 440,000. You know you're going to get that back. So really, what is this about? We seem to have plenty of money when it comes to giving away schools and providing lucrative contracts. So really, what is this about? You have two young and up-and-coming principals present you with a schedule that even they realized during the last board meeting that could be adjusted for the better results. Something that one of them just said to us, but was still not in the proposal that you sent out to everybody. So really, what is this about? You try to push your budget that was only presented piecemeal before you, one that when I first saw it in the finance office, I was forced to wait on, and I was finally presented with a bunch of loose papers that were not even numbered. I was told there was no other copy, so instead of sitting and taking notes, I took out my phone and took pictures of pages that I thought were of interest, such as of C. I was chastised and told to delete the pictures, that I couldn't have copies of a public document. I don't think you could call that transparency nor due diligence. So what is this about? Is it smoke and mirrors for a reduction force? Well, what we do know, we know it's not about a concern in cutting the heart of our instructional programs. We know it's not about the appropriate planning and due diligence. It's not about acknowledging the goodwill of your employees and public who renew the village. It's not about waiting for your MFP adjustments and voucher funding. So to the superintendent and the board members who met and said something must be done, what exactly is that something that you need to get done and who will benefit?
Laura Thompson. Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Laura Thompson. I live at 736 Aniana Street, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71106. Being a parent of a child in Gateway, one in Discoveries, and one in regular classes, I'm acutely aware of the benefits of each of these programs. It is very easy for someone in your position to look at these programs as being excessive or unnecessary, but when we look at the benefit of these programs for our higher achieving students, I think what you will find is that they are not excessive, rather they are imperative. You'll find that these programs, you will find in these programs that the children who are bringing up, these children are bringing up the test scores. These children who need to be challenged, if not continually challenged and developed to their full potential, then all we're doing with our children is striving for mediocrity in our schools. If our only objective is to have everybody at a basic level, then that's all we will ever be, basic. Besides, the worst part of all this is the cutting of the accelerated programs most adversely affects the middle-class neighborhood schools. What the school board has done in recent years has decimated many of the neighborhood schools. The schools on the lower end of the scale in disadvantaged areas has all types of funding available to them. The schools, they have federal funding and other grants available to them. Because of the lower performing schools, the students who are in those districts are able to move at will to better performing schools. At the opposite end of the spectrum, we have magnet schools where children are handpicked and the top students are given an environment in which they can learn and excel and be challenged as a whole. They are not subject to what most of the school systems are subject to. Children at all levels of learning who must be equally catered to in the classroom environment. The neighborhood school is being torn apart because of magnet schools, charter schools, and private schools, which focus on performance and giving the children the challenge that they need in order to reach their full potential. When there are no accelerated programs that give the higher performing students the opportunities to excel in the neighborhood schools, responsible parents have no choice but to look elsewhere. Parents should not and hopefully will not allow their kids to be stifled because the school system doesn't give them the opportunities to excel. Taking these programs away will not serve anyone well. As the opportunities to excel and be challenged fade away in these neighborhood schools, and as the cream of the crop migrates to those schools with better opportunities, the neighborhood schools will continue to erode into underperforming schools. Just look at what has happened to the middle schools in Shreveport. Broadmoor Middle Lab is in a neighborhood school in the middle of middle-class neighborhood. It is a stone's throw away from South Highlands. Yet this school has declined to become the epitome of an inner-city school.
If you please wind it up, the time has expired.
I'd like to wind it up with what my child said, if that's okay. I'd like to leave with one final note. This afternoon I talked with my son about the Discoveries program. Without telling him what was being considered, I simply asked him a couple of questions. When I asked him what he likes about Discoveries, he told me this. He said it makes learning more fun, like a game. We learn about stuff that's interesting that we don't get to do in regular class. It is my favorite class in school. I know from personal experience that the Discoveries program is a tremendous benefit in children's lives and in their education. If you want to modify it and make it more efficient, give it more meaning. I would totally support that, but cutting Discoveries from Caddo Parish school system would not serve anyone well. This program has ignited a fire in my child. He comes home, he spends time on the computer researching, studying topics that he's learned in Discoveries. I hope that you thoughtfully consider these points in making your decision today.
Thank you. Julie Glover. Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Julie Glover, 617 Sophia Lane, Shreveport, 71115. I'm here today as a parent. I have two boys who have been through Caddo Parish schools. I have been a PTA president at Fairfield Magnet. I was a room mom at University Elementary. I was president of the PTA at Uri Drive. And I loved the time I spent in school so much that I became a teacher. And I teach at Southwood High School. And I am the rare person to stand up and speak in favor of option one. In favor of saving instruction time for students, putting that first, and putting our planning period second. Because as was said last time by, I believe, Mr. Pearson, hearing all the can'ts, that's the wrong word to have teachers say. It's won't. When it comes down to it, we teach. I don't care what schedule you give me. I don't care how long a planning period is. I'm going to teach the students in my class. And as a parent, I would hope that my son's teachers would do the same thing. You present us an opportunity every day to teach. It's up to us how we're going to teach, and with the support of administration, we can do whatever schedule you put in front of us. When you look at the options today, Do we cut instruction time? Do we cut reading interventionists? Do we cut discoveries where that love of education is formed? If they don't love being educated in elementary school, what do you think we get as high school teachers? They have to have that baseline. Y'all have spent weeks and hours looking at this budget. It reminds me of the saying that pork spending is only pork when it's in someone else's district. Anywhere you cut, people are going to be upset. The least impact we can give to those students is to not change their instructional. We are not changing the schedule for the students. I've heard that said several times. We're changing schedules for the third time. The students don't see any difference. They still have 8 classes. It changes for us. We're adults. We get paid. We can make the adjustments. And I'm not here because my principal threatened me, as has been said. I'm here because I love my students. And they will succeed. And we have shown that at Southwood, that when we put the students first and put ourselves second and do what we have to do, and we give up planning periods by our choice on a daily basis. We give up lunch, and we had to beg him to get him to agree to let us do lunch detention. Our priority is the students. And I hope y'all vote that same way. Thank you.
Katie Loomis. Katie, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Katie Loomis. I live at 10082 Baldwin Court, Shreveport, 71115. I am a librarian in Caddo Parish. This is my second year as a librarian. We are the first line of defense to combat illiteracy. We have the opportunity to change lives. We have the ability as librarians to match a student with a book that may change their life forever. They may have the opportunity to see a career that they didn't know anything about, or travel to a place that they will never get to see. We also don't just check out books. We have the opportunity to make their lives better. We have the opportunity to turn our students into lifelong learners and readers. We see students, I see 642 students a week with little or no planning time because I'm working with my students. I don't have a clerk. A lot of our schools don't have a clerk. We see students for response to intervention. We do DIBELS. We do testing of many different kinds. And we also have duty every day. We have one librarian who sees 996 students in an elementary school setting in a 6-day period. Some of our high school librarians can see upwards of 2,000 students in a week. It's crazy, but we love our jobs. We know the Common Core curriculum for every grade that we have at our school. I can tell you by looking where every book is for every unit that's coming up in the sample plans that were given to us. And every librarian in Caddo Parish can do that as well. We have the opportunity to have after-school programs, morning programs, take our students out to dinner as a reward on our own dime. We also have the chance to encourage our students and empower our students to be proud of where they go and to school and what they're going to be doing. And if we don't have libraries in elementary school, illiteracy will creep into the upper grades. We are the first line of defense everywhere to combat illiteracy. I know I've said that multiple times, but with our students, reading is so important. I don't care if you're reading a comic book or Stephen Hawking. You have the opportunity because a librarian handed you a book. And I grew up in a house where a love of reading was not, it was instilled. It was not an option. But not all of our students have that opportunity. And not all of our students can get to the public library. But we have the opportunity to do that. Common Core calls for research. How are you going to do research if you can't read? I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you very much.
Scott Hughes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Scott Hughes, 820 Jordan Street, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71101, Executive Director of the Alliance for Education. I really didn't know what I wanted to say today, and after what I've heard so far, I'd rather just defer the balance of my time to the young man that came and spoke earlier. I think that's the best speech I've heard in this board in years. And I think if we took what the young man said and the courage and the passion that it took him to come here and ask you those questions, I think that's the problem. And several of the speakers have hit the other problem. We got two bad choices today. And the first rule in politics, if you want to pass a bad option, make the other one worse. And I think that's where we are today. And what really saddens me about the whole thing is, I think lost in the conversation is, this is a $400 million general operating budget. It's a $500 million annual budget with the federal funds and construction funds and all the other funds. And we're having all this hoopla over basically about $4 million, 1%. And with all respect, I simply fail to believe that who's ever in charge of this process went through $400 million and found all the money that could be cut. I believe that once again we're looking for the low-hanging fruit. And the word priority has come up many times. And I believe a budget establishes your priorities. My minister tells me this all the time. Get out your checkbook, look and see on a monthly basis where you write your checks, and that will establish your priorities, regardless of what you believe they are. That will tell you what they are. And so I think that what we're doing today is we've not established a priority in Caddo Parish. What we're saying is a priority is to cut as few jobs as possible, and so we've looked around to find a place where we can cut 50, 100, 207 jobs, whatever it amounts to get to the magical number we think we need to cut. And I think that we haven't established priorities. What am I talking about? DeSoto had to cut. What were their priorities? We're going to keep universal pre-K, and we're going to keep the TAP program. They set that as a priority and built a budget around that. So I simply ask you, what's the priority in Caddo Parish? Look at the budget and say, what is your priority? Because I would suggest the time has come to set some new priorities in Caddo Parish. Because what you've done for a number of years is go after low-hanging fruit. And you've reached the point now where there's none left. You're down to the bone. The next cuts are going to start cutting people. And we can talk all we want to about attrition and not being laid off. There's layoffs. I've had the calls from your employees. And so let's not pretend there aren't people going to lose jobs. They're going to lose jobs. And I think we need to be honest about that. I think the question we have to ask is, where should they be lost and what should we be doing? The word compete has come up today. I don't believe as a district you're competing for your kids anymore. And I believe you've got to correct what you're doing and compete back for your kids. You're not losing money to the state. You're losing money because people don't want to attend Caddo Parish schools anymore. If you were a business model, you'd be out of business. And until we correct that fundamental problem, and we as a district say, what's it going to take to keep the people in our district, to make them come back from private school, to make them choose us over a charter or a voucher, or the ways that we're losing dollars? Until we answer that question, you're going to keep losing money, and you're going to keep having this cycle. And that's what bothers me, because it's not going to get any better. The elections are next fall, 2014. So you're going to have this whole game again next year, this time of year, 6 months for you all to run for re-election. So I don't see how it's going to get any better next year. You're going to have school performance scores come out in the fall, and they'll come out in the fall of 14. And so here's the question I want to ask. Take away the personnel staffing. What in this budget is going to improve those scores? What in this entire $500 million budget is going to improve the scores and the performance of the Caddo Parish School District? Because I think the time has come to turn the piece of paper over and just start over again. And fundamentally say, what do we do right? And let's do more of that. And by the way, what I've heard today, I'm not an educational expert. I've never taught. I say that all the time to y'all. But I'll tell you what I've heard from those that do. I've heard block scheduling works. We can talk about AB, whatever, CD, whatever it works. I've heard block scheduling works from teachers, from parents, and from kids. And I've heard discoveries works. I've heard it from teachers, parents, and kids. And so I think before you go and approve any budget, which isn't really mandated till about September, by the way, I think you know that, you know the law, I'd back up and say, what is the priority of Caddo Parish, and what are we going to do to fix education? Because if you don't, 2014 is right around the corner for board members that think they're going to get reelected. And you have this budget cycle and next budget cycle to fix, whatever it is you're going to fix. And I don't see a single thing in this budget cycle that's fixing any of the ills of Caddo Parish. Thank you.
Dr. Dawkins.
Thank you, President Ramsey, members of the board, members of the audience. We have, at the board's request, continued to look at proposed staffing for 2013-14. Our goals are to, as much as possible, retain instructional programs within our financial constraints and to complete this without a reduction in force. Please note that under option 1, it is the same proposal that we presented to you last week. Option 2 contains additional categories that we investigated at request of at least the discovery and reading specialists at the request of Ms. Crawley. And we also looked at librarians. It came up in our employee survey as well as our discussion with principals. Any other option that we have right now would require a reduction in force. Let me be clear. We are again proposing to you option 1 is our recommendation. And I'm going to have Dr. Robinson to walk you through it very, very briefly.
Mr. Ramsey, other members of the board, superintendent, and members of the audience. Very briefly, what you're looking at is option 1. That should be very familiar for you. Staff's recommendation is the modified block. You will note that it reduces positions by 69. 7 classes are taught. Cost savings $4.8 million. There needs to be an addendum under planning period because after meeting with administrators, they made a commitment to schedule so that teachers had at least a minimum of 45 minutes of planning period per day. You heard Principal Roberts say that that would look different in our local schools, so please make that addendum, lunch 30 minutes. At the elementary level, policy GCA, which is in place right now, is a K-1 staffing ratio of 1 to 22. The proposal is to round. These 29 positions would be saved by that at a cost of $2 million. Grades 4 through 5, the current policy is 1 to 25. This is an additional 1 student, reduced staff by $9.6 million, total of $2.6 million. You have the $2.6 million that you see there plus the 4.8 gives a savings of $7.4 million to the general fund budget. Option 2 for your consideration, K-1 rounding, grades 4 through 5, 26 to 1, total of 38, and that's as you see it above. The $2.6 million is repeated. Dr. Dawkins mentioned that the discovery teachers came about as a result of us looking or being asked to list the teachers or list those persons in schools who were not keepers of records, and the list yielded 50 persons. But as opposed to looking at the entire list, it is the general fund budget that we were asked to look at, so 31 of those discovery teachers are funded under general funds. Reading specialists, 8 general fund, total amount is given there. The librarians, we have 62 schools, 62 principals, 13 additional, over the 62, we have 75 librarians, which would leave each site with at least 1 librarian. Total of 52 positions, total of $3.8 million. Grand total, 90 positions, $6.4 million. Again, staff recommendation at this point is option 1.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Ms. Priest.
Thank you, President Ramsey. Move to approve staff recommendation for revisions to staffing formula with 90-minute planning period every other day. On weeks where there are only 2 90-minute planning periods, the administration to provide additional planning time up to a minimum goal of 225 minutes. Administration be directed to develop procedures in accordance with law for the reassignment of staff where there are staffing overages.
Ms. Priest.
Basically, you know, as stated earlier, I think we've had budget meetings dating back to really March, and we know that there is a $21.5 million, we had a deficit, and that you're right, there is something that we must do. There are hard decisions that must be made. No matter what decision we make, someone's not going to be pleased with it. There's always going to be a group that's going to say, not my job or not my position or what have you. Sure, this is somewhat kicking the can down the road a little bit. And yes, it is, because there are some tough decisions that's going to have to be made. But this is, at the point in time, the best decision that we can make. We can, with our budget, without any layoffs. And I think that's, we're looking at the cost savings, and there are cost savings in the modified block of $4.8 million. There's cost savings of $7.4 million in your elementary areas. So those are things that we must look at, and it is our obligation to be fiscally as prudent as possible. You know, it's the same way in each and every one of our households. You know, when things are tight and one person is working in the household, we don't go out and we just spend. You know, and we cannot continue to just spend because the money is not there. And even if we get funding back with the MFP, we can't just go out and spend those dollars, because guess what? We'd be right back in the same position.
Mr. Pearson. Ms. Crawley.
Move that we reject both options 1 and 2, keep the 2012-13 staffing formula and high school AB block schedule as is.
Second.
Ms. Crawley.
That's a substitute motion. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to preface it with that.
I'll give you that.
I just get all nerve-wracked.
Okay.
And y'all really mobilized quickly, considering we had 24-hour notice. I appreciate your passion. While we hear that our priority is working for I almost said low class, yes, world-class schools. That was a Freudian slip, really, because I really, you know. What is in the best interest of our students' education? I strongly believe both options contradict that. Principals, teachers, and parents have all testified, with the exception of one, that they do not want us to approve either plan because it will only weaken instruction. And I really have a problem believing promises that are contrary to what we have actually in writing. Because right here it says we're going to move 5th grade from 25 to 26, and all year long I had a classroom with 33 in there, and it was reported over and over again. I am not suggesting that we operate in the red. that we just continue to spend. I'm just trying to direct where we spend, set our priorities. These are not proper priorities. Let's go line by line with the budget. Let's not just take what is spoon-fed to us. Every budget meeting we've had has been a waste of my time and a waste of anybody else's time because we kept getting the same thing. And then we were hammered and you get to talk for 5 minutes. It doesn't matter that you have 15 jillion questions on $500 million worth of a budget. You get 5 minutes. I think that just because of incompetent long-term planning, it does not mean that we now have to make hasty and easy decisions by cutting the heart out of our schools. Thank you.
Mr. Hooks.
Thank you, President Ramsey. Dr. Dawkins, have you all identified the number of people or positions that will lose under your staff? Have those positions been identified yet?
That's in the larger budget, yes. That's in the larger budget. That's in the larger budget.
That's in the larger budget? Okay. I was kind of, my feelings were hurt when one of the speakers got up and said that we spent long days at looking at this budget. But that's a lie. I spent a half day. I didn't get this. Now, some board members may have spent long days, but this board member did not spend long days. I think I started looking at my budget at 12 o'clock, which was too late. I saw an email from our board member, Rochelle, asking that we be given some information so we can go over it, so we won't come in here blindsided. Who remembers CJ? Who remembers CJ?
Mr. Hooks, you need to speak to the motion.
I'm speaking to the motion. Give me time.
Okay,
Who remembers CJ?
I do.
CJ is my grandson. And CJ, if y'all remember...
Mr. Hooks, and I'm gonna give you a little, but I'm having a tough time tying your grandson to this motion.
If you listen, you'll understand. Give me a time to talk. Look, you have given us a lesser of two evils here. Neither one of these proposals are good. So I'm gonna make my point. When I came about 4 years ago to the board, I brought CJ and my grandson Kyle, and I told you all that they were the reason for me being a board member. CJ and Kyle takes Discovery. In my district, I have 7 schools in District 5, and out of all 7 of those schools, 5 of my schools, which you didn't have on there, Cleveland, have Discovery or intervention, reading intervention, or either both. Now, I made a promise to CJ and children like CJ that they would get the quality education that they should get. The classroom should be the last place you cut. Amen. The last place. Never look in the classroom. That's the last place. I have not heard anybody mention academic. And we are going to be hurting academically if we get rid of these Discovery teachers, library, and reading interventionists, and some of our special ed people. We're going to be hurting. And I just cannot go along with this proposal here. This is the devil advocate. Thank you.
Ms. Armstrong.
My comment had to do with the first motion, and I wanted clarification on it.
Okay, Ms. Bell.
Okay. one thing about it, I'm gonna be honest with everybody. And I'm looking at my notes right now. On May 14th, I brought up about, we was talking about ISS. And if I'm not, and I know I'm not blind, we was talking about what we would lose cutting putting IS back in the classroom. And my colleague, Ms. Crowley, brought up the idea that we needed to cut Discover teachers. And I will never say the word that she called the Discover teacher. I will never repeat it, because I'm the first. If you go back and look at the live broadcast, you'll see where I hollered. I said, I cannot believe this. And she the one brought up.
Point of order.
She the
Point of order, President.
Ms. Bell, you need to get to the motion.
She's not speaking to
I'm
the
talking about the
motion.
motion.
That was not a motion.
Ms. Crawley,
And when, okay.
Ms. Bell, to the motion.
Okay, the motion was that we keep, Dr. Discovery, that never came up.
That's not part of a
That never
motion.
came up. It's not the motion, but you're saying about, option 1 and option 2. Option
Yes.
1 and option 2 do talk about it, and that's what you said, that they are no good, both option 1 and 2. Can I talk on them? That's
But
what you
she's
said in
referring
your
to me.
motion, option 1 and option 2. Clear me up, please, sir.
Yes, the motion is dealing with both options, so you're in order. Now, board members, no talking back and forth.
Option 2 was never brought up in any of the conversations till last week. We received this list of names of people teaching reading intervention and discovery from my colleague who just said she did not do it. Nobody never, and I will tell you right now, I will never reduce discovery or any teacher from option 2. I'm not going to that. But I want to make it clear that we never thought about that. We was talking about the block scheduling. I'm just saying what we talked about. So let's clear that up right now. That never came up unless our board member, the one brought the whole proposal up. And we do have the list that she presented to each one of us. Okay. Now, I am opposing the option 2, but option 1 needs to be done. We're talking about, okay. I'm opposing what she said because we do not have the money. We are reducing the money. We're trying to save jobs. Keep people from going out from one position to another. That's what we said. We're trying to save money. But if we, and I like to ask Dr. This is about this too. If we, can I ask this question to Dr. Dalton?
Yes.
If we do not vote for option 1 or option 2.
Okay, Ms. Bell, there's no motion on the floor to vote for option 2.
All I want to say
This
is,
motion is dealing with putting both of them off.
okay,
Okay.
only thing I'm saying,
All right.
nothing never came up until Ms. Crowley mentioned, proposed it to us and said, she the one brought up that bill. Okay? Clear that up.
Ms. Crawford.
Mr. Ramsey, point of order, could they restate both of these, somebody restate both of these motions?
Well, we'll restate the one.
Could you
I can
restate?
get Ms. Crawley to restate hers.
Yeah, okay.
Move that we reject both options 1 and 2, keep the 2012-13 staffing formula and the high school AB block schedule as is.
Okay. Ms. Crawford.
I just wanted her to restate it, so just so I can understand. You're saying keep the 2012-13 staffing formula and the AV block the same? That's what I'm wondering.
Okay, Ms. Trammell.
Mr. President, I would like to ask, with that motion that we just heard for both, how do we fund it? Where do we have money to do that? Is there someone can answer that for me?
Dr. Dawkins.
You're asking me the question, certainly the only...
if we're going to rotate and go out for the next school year with zero money already, we already in red, how do we know we're going to have enough money to fund it? This is my question.
You can deplete the fund balance, or you can find other areas to cut.
Okay, now, if we deplete the fund balance, and so we can go into setting up a RIF for this parish.
You'll set up a RIF at the same time.
Okay, and that'll work. Thank you.
Mr. Rochelle.
I just want to get one thing clear. What is the purpose of us having the staffing formula changed? What's the real purpose of it?
Doctor.
Would you restate the question again?
What is the purpose, the real purpose of having the staffing formula changed?
Could you hold that question for the next motion? This motion is eliminating both.
I think it's relevant to this motion now.
Okay. Dr. Dawkins, you got a quick answer? I'll allow
I
it.
have Dr. Robinson to come up as well, but every year the board looks at staffing formula, and it's really to make adjustments on the number of teachers we have, class size, and it's based on enrollment. We've lost about 3,000 students here in our district, so we always have to look at the up and down of our enrollment as well, the number of children that enroll, and that dictates the number of staff that we will assign. And the staffing formula is our policy structure that will dictate that.
Okay, the staffing formula deals with actually the ratios, whereas if we have a loss of students, that just actually has a reduction in really having the total employee.
Well, they're intertwined. You know, when there are teachers when we lose students, certainly that impacts the building population, the number of students that we have to staff.
But we wouldn't necessarily have to change these staffing formulas just because of dropping student population. If all the money was there, we wouldn't necessarily be looking at this at that point.
If all the money was there,
Yes.
every year we look at staffing formulas. We bring a staffing formula every year.
Okay.
I think you look at the records, I think that's true.
You are correct, Mr. Rochelle. If the number of students that we service is reduced by whatever the reasons, then the number of teachers is reduced also. But the staffing ratio would remain the same, 22-1 or whatever. As we are looking at the general fund budget, especially in HR, 82 to 85% of the general fund budget is people and benefits. And if that is the target area where the deficits exist, then of course, if you want to really impact, then this is the area, unfortunately, where the impact is.
Okay, so, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, is really we're looking at the staffing formula on what the real impact is going to be on the budget. Would that be correct? Okay. All right, so this is budget, these staffing formula changes or no changes is really just to deal with the budget. Okay. I'm going to give a little background history. Is I know that this board over the years, when we had the money, we've gone in and reduced class sizes. We've kept in place school supply money. We've provided additional help and student as available. I know that this board has done that. The times have changed. No doubt that they have changed. You know, and unfortunately, a lot of the changes are coming from the state level, and we don't ever know sometimes what those changes are going to be until they hit us, and so it's very difficult for us to make some of those decisions. In a dream, I'd keep all the classes small. I'd have University Elementary where there was only 600 students at most there, and have some more schools built out in Southeast Canada. That hasn't happened. I think we're going to have some real tough decisions coming forward with this. Now, because of the impact, and we're looking at the impact that this has really for the budget, I personally don't agree with either one of these. I didn't speak in favor of them in the last board meeting. Well, for the one that we're looking at, I voted against it.
And I don't see that I'm going to vote for it today. Nothing's changed at this point in time as far as I'm concerned, because I believe we are looking at this as far as the impact of what the budget is. I think that there may be some other areas that could have been addressed. We may have some other options available on what we can do with the budget. I haven't seen any other. These are the only two options that I've seen right here as far as dealing with it. I think one thing that the public also needs to know, and because we're going to have to make some changes, there's no doubt. But I have the full budget up here, and I think that we can find other areas that we can do this. And I think we're going into this budget planning of having we're going to get into our reserves. We are. It's how much we're going to get into our reserves. I don't think giving our schools, our teachers, high school, any of these, such short notice to try to make such drastic changes, I think it's just poor planning. I think it's just poor planning not to have dealt with this and then just drop it in their lap. For the public, just so that you'll know, in the past 3 years, these are the impacts that we've dealt with at the school board on. That's why I clarified why this item was on the agenda. It was because of the impact on the budget. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at, is the impact on the budget. In the past 3 years, this school board has had to contribute an additional $17 million per year for employee benefits. It's something that this board is going to have to deal with. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able, I don't know, we certainly can't save $17.7 million that it's gone up in the past 3 years, but that's the impact that things, a lot of them out of our control, we haven't been able to control. So I feel like that we can find these dollars elsewhere. I had a discussion with quite a few people today, and we're in the business of educating people, or educating children. That's what our job is to educate the children. I didn't vote for this last time. And we had some great, and I told one of the principals that he sat right here and came up with some great ideas right in the middle of our meeting that, we have time that we can still go back and get some other ideas on the table. So I think there's got to be some better ideas than these two right here, as far as I'm concerned. I think that's it. And I do want to reiterate to everybody, I did not vote for this last time. This second option, I would never support this in cutting discoveries. Both of my children did discoveries at university, as a matter of fact. Because we're in the business of educating children, and that is too close to the kids. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ms. Green?
Yes, sir, Madam President. Mr. President, I'm sorry. I would like to speak to the first motion.
Look, wait till the first motion.
Sir?
You're going to speak to this motion.
Okay, so do I need to get back on the board to come around? Okay. Well, I did that twice, that's why I'm asking.
You've been on the board 2 times? I guess I missed it.
Yeah, what happened was I knew they were still talking about Ms. Crowley's motion, so I took myself off and put myself back on.
All right, we're still on Ms. Crawley's motion. Okay. Ms. Crawford, are you back? You're back on? Okay.
With the changes, I've been out of pocket, so I don't know if this question has been answered, but this would go to whatever motion, but it speaks to this. The changes that I've been hearing that the legislature made in the the 2.75% growth rate in MFP and the refunding of the, or going back to the 2011-12 MFP, I don't know how that would affect us. Would it be a positive effect?
Dr. Dawkins.
One-time money? What's?
Oh, you want a question? Okay.
Yeah, you know,
Yep.
what's that gonna do
Mr. Henry
to our
from our
budget?
finance office to answer that. He's been in touch with people in that group.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Crawford. The information we've received from the State Department, they prepared a simulation, and Caddo is to receive some money from the, if they actually fund it according to that. But in looking, you know, our estimates are in the budget that we're given. You know, we constantly revise those, and with the money that we should receive from that, the 21.5 estimate wouldn't change. Wouldn't. And the amount's about $1 million, but again, it take into account the estimates, you know, from back in March to where we are now. And we're dealing with $400 million. That's, you know, those estimates, you know, fluctuate. So.
Just one more little quick question. If that money comes, would that be just money, if it would come, would it just be money we would get this year, or would we continue to get it from year to year?
We've not seen any simulations for next year regarding that issue.
So we would have to go on the premise that this would be one-time money.
Yeah, you know, until, you know, our practice has been until we get some kind of authoritative word from the State Department, a simulation, if you will, we don't put it into the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hooks, this is your second opportunity on this motion.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Mayor.
This is your second time on this motion.
Oh, you
You're
have?
limited to 2 times.
Oh, okay. I won't need another time. Thank you, Mr. President. We're trying to save 7.4 million, right? You don't answer that.
7.4 is what we would save under the first option.
Okay, well, tell me this. Why did we extend Ombudsman's contract? We could have waited, and we knew the budget was coming up, and that's $3+ million right there. Why did we renew the contract that quick? We could have waited. And we wouldn't be arguing over this. We would have the money.
Mr. Hooks, that one's a little bit out of order there.
Over that out of order?
Yeah, just.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Are you done?
Oh, yes, sir. You said I was out of order.
I said that question was. Okay. Okay. Ms. Priest?
Ms. Crawford asked the question that I had. That was on that motion.
Ms. Crowley?
If I were evil, I would call for the question on both motions, but I don't believe in that. Anyway, all I want to say is just what a speaker said. We're talking about $7.4 million out of almost $500 million budget. There is a line item to increase the Ombudsman program by $4 million this year. It's in we have not gone, it's listed, I called, I know. All right, I'm trying to gear up why we need to go to the budget line by line and not approve something that is not educationally sound. We as a board are very used to just saying, please just show us what we're supposed to do, and then we can say, oh, this was the superintendent's proposal, his ideas. It's not ours, we just do as we're told. And so we don't do it right. We do it the opposite of how it's supposed to be. The board should set the tone and what is our philosophy, what is our constituents' philosophy for education, and then the superintendent is to carry out that philosophy. Cutting this budget like this for $7.4 million is not saying a philosophy for instruction. Yes, I did ask for questions on all type of personnel. I wanted a list of personnel in the schools, and yes, they gave us discoveries, reading specialists. They didn't mention librarians. But both of these, yes, staff came up with both of these options, option 1 and option 2. So if we vote on them, we can say, staff did this, we didn't do this. So anyway, I think we're not doing this right, people. Take some responsibility and say that you believe in education and vote no for both of these, and then go down the line and go through the budget, item by item. I bet you didn't even realize that is a budget item. It's because I had somebody call Mr. Hennigan, and he said it is to increase staff for ombudsman. We're going to increase their staff, but we're going to decrease ours.
Ms. Green?
Are we on about for the first motion yet?
Okay. Are there any other questions on the substitute motion? Ms. Green is, okay, Mr. Pearson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want, point of some information. Even if we pass option 1 or option 2, we'll still have a $4 million shortfall. So it's $4.2 million shortfall. Is that right? So this doesn't balance our budget. It doesn't balance the $21 million. Now, I mean, we hope that at some point we'll have a windfall, and we'll be able to do it. Last year, we had an opportunity to raise, to float a bond for $133 million that would have built a new school in Southeast Shreveport and raises for our teachers, but we voted that down. Some of the same folk who are willing to vote this down. So we back here again. No doubt we'll be back here next year. But if you don't raise money in some manner, then you're gonna have to cut something. Now I don't want to cut anybody. I don't want to see anybody not have a planning period. I don't want to cut discoveries, because that's good for our children. And it's, it's tough on our teachers not to have a planning period. But until we get to the point, and I guess I'm not speaking to the motion, and I'm sorry. Until we get to the point where we realize that at some point we have to raise some money. We have to do something to raise money. How long has it been since you folk had raises? And we got issues with it. I do, because I was a teacher. So I'm sorry, but I just want to make that point of clarity. Hopefully we can, I'm not going to support the motion. I'm not going to support that motion. But hopefully we can get to a point where we can move forward and make some things happen. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ms. Trammell?
Mr. President, I would like to call for the question on both motions.
Did I hear a second? Second. Okay, there's a call for question for both motions.
Was it a call for this one or for both?
You said for both. Call for the question for both.
want to make sure they understand. I would like to call for the question for what we are,
For the substitute.
yeah, for the substitute motion. Thank you.
Okay, my mistake. For this motion only, call for the question, and that is the motion to not do anything, and stay with the current staffing formula. Okay, but that's the motion. This is call for the question only on that motion. Please vote. Show the vote. There we go. Okay. The debate is ended. Now, please vote for the motion. The motion on the floor is Ms. Crawley's motion.
Mr. Ramsey, would you clarify yes vote or no vote, which way it goes?
Okay. A yes vote will approve the motion on the floor. Ms. Crawley, would you restate your motion? A yes vote will approve the motion. A no vote will not.
Move that we reject, so or approve the rejection of both options, 1 and 2. Keep the 2012-13 staffing formula and high school AB block schedule as is.
Okay. Okay. One more. We got one more on the floor. Ms. Green, have you voted? You'll still have that opportunity if. Ms. Crawley, the lobbying's over with. Okay, show the vote.
I still haven't voted. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Motion fails. All right, it goes to the original motion. Now, should I clear the board, Ms. Bell, or you want to talk to the original motion?
No, I mean, I didn't know, I was gonna talk to last.
Okay, it's over. Ms. Priest, do you need to talk with the original motion? No?
They say I need to reread it.
Reread the motion, please.
Move to approve staff recommendation for revisions to staffing formula with 90-minute planning period every other day on weeks where there are only 2 90-minute planning periods. Administration to provide additional planning time up to a minimum goal of 225 minutes. Administration is directed to develop procedures in accordance with law for the reassignment of staff where there are staffing openings.
Okay. And Mr. Ryle, you're...
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
In your motion, in this brief motion, did she leave out the elementary section of option 1?
I don't think so.
I didn't, is that included? I didn't hear it in the motion.
She's digging through.
Okay. We'll read that into it. Elementary, K through 1 rounded, 29, position reduced, cost savings 2 million. Grades 4 through 5, 26 to 1. Positions reduced 9.6 million. Total positions reduced 38, 2.6 million. Grand total 107. Positions reduced, cost savings 7.4. Currently included in the 2013-14 proposed budget.
Okay. So I am correct in assuming that the motion is the whole content of option 1, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Green.
Okay. So basically, what I'm looking at now is instead of the 90 minutes every other day, they'll get the 90 minutes, 45, 90, 45, so they will get a planning period.
Dr. Dodd. Mr. Abrams.
The way that motion is written, it's 90 minutes every other day. And when you only have two 90-minute periods, then it's up to administration as to how to put the additional 45 minutes. It's not saying 45 and 45. It's to guarantee you up to at least 225 minutes. It's between staff, the administrators, to come up with how they get the extra minutes.
Okay, so right now, their planning period lies in the administrator's hand.
Partially.
Okay, and I come up here today to vote for something we probably already did on the other night, except for adding 45 minutes. Let the administrator add the 45. I think I'm done. Thank you.
Ms. Armstrong.
And I had pretty much the same question when I heard her motion restated, because it was my understanding that we would have planning time set aside every day for teachers in the modified block. Now, I think we need to have some verification of that, because I realize that all principals are not going to be proactive, and they're going to have some help in getting those schedules. And I would like to have some feel real good about this before I vote on it, that help is going to be available, and that these principals are going to accept the help to get the planning time back for our high school teachers.
And we did, and staff did have a meeting with high school principals this morning, and so speak to that, Dr. Robinson.
Ms. Armstrong and members of the board, there was a meeting this morning of the high school principals, and there are variations as to how it is they think that they can do this, but the general consensus was that they could, and there are persons in PD who have been assigned or who have some experience with flex scheduling that will assist the principals with this process. I just like to add that staffing administrators sitting in the back of the room, and well, you met them at the previous meeting. James Kennedy and Charles Louder will communicate with principals as soon as the decision is made so that they can staff. Please keep in mind that it is the summer months and it's time for us almost to send them home.
And Ms. Armstrong, let me be clear about that. Every school is different, as you know.
Right.
And so those principals are committed to making it work for their schools, because all of them won't have the same schedule.
And I understand that,
Okay.
but I just want a commitment that every school,
Yes.
every high school will have that
That's
time
absolutely,
set aside.
absolutely,
Not every day.
absolutely.
I want to ask Mr. Abrams to make another point of clarification for you on that.
The current school board policy does not have anything in there for planning periods, and they kind of do it. But this motion actually requires that there be a planning period. So the board is actually putting in place to say that you're going to have that 90 minutes every other day. And because there is a week when they do this B block or the A block, you got 2 days that are only 90 minutes in there. There was concern about whether or not they could get, last week there was a deal about 15 minutes on those other days, which the board would have been trying to tell them what to do on those days, and it didn't work. So what the motion does now is just leave that open period so that they can grab those other 45 minutes or more if they can do it. But the board is directing that it be a minimum goal of that the total of 225 minutes on that alternate week. The week before that, they get 270 minutes, which is well above even what the state has in the rules. So your policy now will actually, your motion will actually have where it is a board requirement that you have. Even though I've made statements that it's not mandated by the state law, because I don't believe they funded it, the board is allowed to do it, and therefore you're actually being proactive to provide a planning period of provided by policy if you pass this motion.
Okay, thank you. And the second thing I want to ask with regards to the elementary configuration, it has to do with enrichments, and they are not mentioned in this. But we do have a staffing formula that does say, at this point in time, our staffing formula addresses that, and it says that every elementary school will be serviced with PE, art, and music. And I would like a commitment that that will definitely continue to be in place at all elementary schools.
Yeah, there's no change to that at all.
Okay,
There's no
and
change.
so I want to be sure that that is communicated to all elementary principals so that they will staff accordingly.
We're prepared to staff in that manner.
Because that is outside the staffing formula. Okay, thank you very much.
Ms. Trammell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Armstrong, thank you. Asked the question that was bearing on me with the time to make sure that it's included in the motion that she's making to make certain that they do have a planning period every day.
Thank you. Ms. Crawley.
I have an amendment to put into writing that every other day, teachers will have in high school, will have a 90-minute period one day, and the next day they will have a 45-minute unencumbered planning period. And that we will keep the same staffing formula for the elementary grades as in 2012, 2013. We will not round it and put 26 kindergartners in a class.
I need a point of clarification. Is this a substitute motion, or is this?
An amendment.
No.
It's an amendment to this.
I'm still trying to digest I didn't hear.
Second. Second.
Mr. Abrams. I couldn't hear there was a little background noise and I couldn't hear the second. There was a second. Okay, we have an amendment. And Mr. Abrams, does that give us, and I'm trying to,
She put in an amendment to actually change the planning period. It's not a substitute because it didn't complete it, eliminate the original motion.
so that, it's not, okay, it is an amendment. It changes the wording of the original motion. And, okay, Ms. Crowley, you want to?
It's an amendment. It's an amendment.
It's an amendment to this motion.
Because it's still the modified block. But it is putting it, I get to speak as my turn. I get to I want it in writing what they said they're able to do. I don't want it's up to whoever, because now we know the power that principals have if a teacher speaks up and says, oh, when they passed this, they said we would get a 45-minute planning period. So I want it in writing that one day the teacher will have the high school with the modified block. She will have she will have a 45-minute planning period as stated that could be done, and a 90-minute the next day. And it will alternate just like the AB block does. I want it in writing. And then the other thing is that we will leave the cap at 22 for kindergarten, not raise it up to 26, and that we will keep it at 25.
Now you're getting, that's not an
It is
amendment.
my amendment. It's a modified block schedule.
You're changing the motion now.
Well, that's what I had said to start with. Okay, we'll call it a substitute motion.
No. No, we're,
Okay, it's my substitute. We'll call it a substitute. Excuse me if y'all disagree. I just said we'd modify the block and put it in writing, though, that they'll actually get a planning period.
I still need a point of clarification. Is this going to be a substitute motion? I believe that it is.
It would be another substitute motion as she stated it, and it is not a friendly amendment or anything else. It's a substitute motion, okay?
Okay. So we have a substitute motion, and was there a second? Okay,
Yeah, Mr.
okay.
Hooks.
All right,
All right, Mr. Crawley, you want to explain your motion again? Let's see, I'm going to have to check Robert rules to see how many substitute motions we can have.
As many as I can get a friend amend to second. I'm adamant about not putting 26 kindergarten and first graders in a class. You've already done that. I'm adamant about that, and they put it in both plans. They know that that's where I was looking for how we could replace those cuts. That's why I was looking at everything, under every rock to find, so we can not put not get little kindergartners and first graders off on the wrong foot. They can forget discoveries if they have 26 kids in a class. They'll either be gateway or nothing. And modified block, I'm letting it go. But if you're going to promise something, then you need to step up and put it in writing. Not just, oh, well, it'll be up to the principals. I mean, I know principals want to do what's best, but some of them just don't, you know. It shouldn't be up to a teacher to call a principal out. The school board members should be saying, you will do this. Thank you.
Mr. Hooks had the second.
Yes, I did.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I would not.
Okay. I like that, Mr. Hooks. Thank you. Dr. Dawkins?
So I'm clear, you're asking for the inclusion of 45 minutes every other day on top of the 90? I'm not sure what you're saying.
Every other day, they will get their 45, like Southwood said they could do, and then 90 minutes on the next day. It's every other day. He said they could do that.
But every school is different, and they'll arrange it differently. 225 per week is the total number that they would have to work with. And so if it's 50 one week and 35 one day, 50 the next day, I mean.
So you're saying I need to say 45 and 45 each day, or what?
I'm saying that the collective 225 per week gives them all the flexibility to work with staff to make it happen.
So you're saying that it is possible that they would not have anything but lunch on some days? That is what I'm hearing.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. We said planning every day. I didn't say, you know.
Okay, I mean, you know how that goes. I would still not be willing to go with iffy stuff.
Mr. Rao?
I call for the question on all the motions.
Okay, there's a call for the question for all motions on the table. There's Ms. Crawley's substitute motion and then the original motion. Please vote. And a call for the question, yes, will end the debate. Voting on call for the question. On both motions. Show the vote. Okay. Now, we will vote on Ms. Crawley's substitute motion. Ms. Crawley, would you like to repeat that again?
I move that we accept the modified block, except we will have it in writing, that they will have a 45-minute period, planning period, unencumbered, on day one, and then the next day, on an alternating basis, they will have a 90-minute period, planning period, and then 45 and 90. That it will be in writing and in the schedule for every high school. And that we will not raise kindergarten, first grade, or grades 5 and 6 staffing ratio.
Please vote. Vote is on the substitute motion. Show the vote. Okay, motion fails. Now to the original motion. Ms. Priest, I hate to do this to you, but would you please repeat the motion for this board?
Move to approve staff recommendation for revisions to staffing formula with 90-minute planning period every other day. On weeks where there are only 2 90-minute planning periods, administration to provide additional planning time up to a minimum goal of 225 minutes. Administration is directed to develop procedures in accordance with law for the reassignment of staff where there are staffing overages. Elementary schedule configuration. K through 1 rounded positions reduced 29, cost savings $2 million. Grades 4 through 5, 26 to 1. Positions reduced 9, cost savings $0.6 million. Total positions reduced 38, cost savings $2.6 million. Grand total 107, positions reduced, cost savings 7.4. Currently included in the 2013-14 proposed budget.
Please vote. Show the vote. Motion passes. Mr. Pearson.
Second.
Please vote.